All right, well, it's great to see everybody. Great conference, and there we go. So quick background about myself, why I'm up here. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of BITGO. BITGO is a company that's been around for working in the Bitcoin space since the beginning of 2013, pioneering some key technologies in security like multi-sig, and I'll talk a bit about that. My background is a combination of fintech as well as startups in the consumer space, publishing space, and others. I have a technical background, but my co-founders don't let me code anymore, thank God. And I've been obsessed with Bitcoin since 2012. I started trading in Bitcoin. I started publishing content in Bitcoin, and just getting involved in the community. And that's, that's really how I think most of us get involved, is we start to meet great people, and those develop into business relationships and opportunities, and that's how we build this ecosystem together. BITGO, for those of you who are not familiar with the company, we're the leading Bitcoin security platform company. We have raised about $14 million in total venture capital funding. We have folks like the former CEO of VeriSign on our board, the former CTO of Netscape on our board, our investors. I think I have more investors than employees actually right now. But we have put together a team. My co-founders Mike Belshi and Ben Davenport are exceptional in the fields of online security and online technology, and we put together this team to really try to build a vision around securing the world's Bitcoin. What does it mean to take Bitcoin at where it is today and scale it so that we can have the kind of growth that we all want to see? So we have two products today that folks are familiar with, many to come in 2015. We have an enterprise wallet called BITGO Enterprise, which is used by some of the largest companies in the Bitcoin space, and we have a platform API. The customers that work with BITGO, and this will be my last promotional slide and then move into the content of this talk. The customers that use BITGO, we have a diversity of enterprise customers. If you want, you can sign up for BITGO for free and use it for your own holdings, but where we really focus is on the enterprise. Those are family office investors, hedge funds, exchanges, miners, e-commerce. Across the board, all of these companies have come to the realization that you can't do security in a DIY fashion. You can't just roll a desktop wallet and pass a password around the company. Trust your CTO with the private keys. We've had, too many hacks, too many losses, and so what these companies are looking for is security around storage and transactions. They're looking for corporate treasury policies like spending limits, something you get with your bank account, fraud detection like you get with your credit card. They're looking for multi-user access. They're looking for financial reporting and audit capabilities, right? We're seeing companies now grow into really large, valuable companies, and they need the kind of financial controls and reporting capabilities that you see in other types of financial software. And then lastly, our platform API. So I'm very proud of the customers we have below. Many of you probably heard about the Bitstamp announcement last week. So Bitstamp is now using BITGO for its hot wallet. We worked with them collaboratively to replace their previous hot wallet, and we're able to replace it in 2 days with a BITGO API implementation. The foundation itself uses BITGO, Bitfury, one of the largest mining companies, as well as Binary Financial, one of the largest OTC trading hedge funds, Terra Exchange, the first CFTC-regulated exchange, is on BITGO, first multi-sig exchange, and others like ChangeTip, breaking the consumer glass and figuring that use case out. So on to the topic at hand. I want to talk about Bitcoin security, kind of a look back at 2014, and then some forecasts for what 2015 is going to be about and what's important. So 2014 is going to be a lot of discussion about multi-sig. That was kind of the key topic. When we look back at the beginning of 2014, the end of 2013, there was this massive run-up in price, a lot of awareness. We heard Dan Morehead speak yesterday about the hype cycle and the awareness around Bitcoin, and that price growth turned a lot of people's eyes towards Bitcoin. But what was also happening was stuff like this: people losing their keys, people getting hacked, not controlling their funds well. And it was all over the press in 2013 into 2014. And then you have situations like this, where people say, hey, to keep Bitcoin secure, let's put it on a piece of paper and put that piece of paper in a vault. So I'm not sure that really counts even as a digital currency. This one cracked me up. This was on Bloomberg TV, somebody demonstrating a paper wallet, opened up, exposed the private key, and within minutes somebody on Reddit stole the private key, stole the money, and sent it to Sean's outpost. It was a pretty classic example of how consumers and enterprises are not really prepared to manage their own keys and manage their own security. So what we need to do as an industry is have a secure ecosystem. Nobody is going to trust or be excited or get involved in Bitcoin outside of the enthusiasts in this room if we can't have a secure ecosystem. And that touches every point. Gavin Andreessen, the chief scientist of the Bitcoin Foundation, declared in May of last year that 2014 was the year of multi-sig. Folks like our company have been saying it's the year of multi-sig. And I'll talk a bit about what multi-sig is for those of you who are not familiar with it. And we did see the emergence of multi-sig, but that's really kind of a core technology. And my theme today, you'll see, is that multi-sig is something everyone needs to embrace, and then we can move to the next generation of security approaches, policies, and standards that'll make this ecosystem secure. So multi-sig is a digital equivalent of a safe deposit box. If you walk into a bank to access your safe deposit box, you have a key with you. Your banker will check your ID. They'll put in their key. You put in your key. You turn the keys. You can open the box. If either key is stolen by itself, you can't get access to that safe deposit box. And multi-sig is that digital equivalent. It requires multiple keys to sign any transaction. It's based on a corner of the Bitcoin protocol called P2SH, which was introduced in BIP 16 by Gavin Andreessen in early 2012, adopted by most of the miners by mid-2013, and then now adopted by pretty much all of the wallets and others in terms of the recognition of that special address up there. So if you see that address there, it starts with a 3. That means it's a P2SH address. P2SH is short for pay to script hash, and you can read more about that particular technology. If you see an address that starts with a 1, that means that there's a single key, there's one private key, there's one piece of data that can be stolen to take money out of that address. So if you're a consumer and you're using a Bitcoin address and you see it starting with a 3, backed by a reputable provider, you know you're safe. If you see it starting with a 1, it could be hacked. And so what we need to do as an industry is move towards that 3 and see this embracing of a multi-sig. I wrote a piece, and there's a link at the end in the fall of last year about it's time to end the cold storage ice age and move to multi-sig. It's really time for all of us to embrace this reality that single key storage is no longer acceptable. So the way that we work with multi-sig, there's different flavors. There's companies implement it in different ways. But we use a 2 of 3 key implementation. And we have those keys generated and distributed on different machines. So there's never a situation where you have one person that sees more than one key, or you have one device that's generated more than one key, or you have more than one key stored in the same place or the same security model. In our model, we have a BitGo key that's generated by us and stored in our key server, a tamper-proof piece of technology. We have a customer key that's generated by the customer client side or via our API and stored by that customer. We only see the public version of that key. And then there's an offline cold key, and we provide the tools to generate that, and it's stored cold. That last key is for disaster recovery. So day to day, minute to minute, if you are Harry A. at BIEN Financial, who exclusively uses BitGo for trading, and he's one of the largest OTC traders in the world, every time that he is transacting, Harry is typing in his passcode to sign a transaction with the customer key, and we are co-signing that transaction programmatically and immediately. Every day, every minute. If you're Bitstamp and you're running your exchange, every time that they're signing a transaction to withdraw from the hot wallet, they're signing with the customer key. We're checking fraud detection, corporate treasury policies, spending limits, and so forth, and then co-signing with that BitGo key. If there's ever a situation in which BitGo becomes unavailable, then that backup key can be used in concert with the customer key through open source software and transact back on the blockchain without BitGo's involvement. So this is a system that allows you to have full control of your Bitcoin. You're not depositing them with BitGo. We're not holding your Bitcoins, but we are providing that security layer like that banker does at the safe deposit box. So multi-sig is, in my mind, kind of like SSL, right? We all use SSL today. By every website you go to has HTTPS. That wasn't the case in 1993 or 4 or 5 or even really 2008, 9, 10. What happened was Netscape and other companies were racing to try to figure out how to secure the communication in the web. And they came up with an idea called SSL internally. They turned that into a standard, and that standard then got embraced by companies like VeriSign, who built certificate authorities, who leveraged that standard to make the web more secure. And once that standard was out there, and once that was embraced by many companies in the ecosystem, then the web could flourish. Then we saw the growth of e-commerce, social networking, publishing, and other things. None of that was possible until the industry embraced the standard. And that's where we are today. Multi-sig is clearly the standard needs to be embraced, and now we're starting to see companies adopt it, and once we adopt it, then we'll be able to move forward as an industry. So my proposal around emerging standard multi-sig is detailed here. You can build it yourself. You can use a platform provider. A couple of the key tenets that are really important is looking at funds held on blockchain as the first one. What I mean by on blockchain versus off blockchain is around the transparency, auditability, and security of the blockchain. So we all know, what happened with Mt. Gox and the difference between their internal ledger and the blockchain ledger and the lack of transparency that led to that catastrophic loss. If you have an exchange or a wallet or a service that's running on blockchain, then you can independently audit those funds. We work with one of our customers is ChangeTip, and ChangeTip, it's really important as a company that they are able to provide transparency and reliability and security around the funds that they're holding on behalf of their customers, and we help them do that. Independent auditing is also very critical. And if we're using the blockchain, if we're storing funds on the blockchain, we can independently audit without having to do a one-off deep dive into the independent ledger inside the company. In some cases, segregated accounts is really important. You're not going to do that for holding $1 of somebody's somebody's holdings. But in the example of Terra Exchange, the first CFTC-regulated exchange, they're doing $1 million swaps, right? A customer is posting collateral for a $1 million swap. They're posting that Bitcoin into a multi-sig escrow account, and that escrow account is secured with BitGo, but then is also independently auditable. Those Bitcoins can't move until that swap is cleared, until that contract is finished. We're starting to now see embracing of corporate treasury policy, some of the typical financial treasury controls that you have with fiat software. We use things like spending limits, whitelisting recipients, user roles around rights, what you can spend. We have advanced techniques like velocity limits, time of day restrictions, and so forth. So if you're running your business and you want to scale up your finance team or your trading desk or what have you, you want to be able to let them run without giving them the private key or giving them the password. And you want to know that you don't have to watch like a hawk, that they're going to either make mistakes or do something malicious in the company. So this is a way, these type of corporate treasury policies allow you to scale your business. And then lastly, leveraging the security of multi-institutional key distribution, I think is going to be a theme in 2015. So in 2014, people just started getting around the idea of multi-sig. Multi-sig is a technology, it's like SSL. Multi-user is the next step, so you're not just holding multiple keys for a wallet, but you're spreading those keys across multiple people. And multi-institutional is the idea of spreading those keys across multiple companies or organizations. And so if you have a key with company A and company B, and company A goes down, company B can still operate, can still provide recourse to those customers whose funds they're holding. So we provide a third-party cosigner service with BitGo. You can also use store a backup key with a custodian, or take a piece of open source software like Copay and deploy your keys across multiple institutions. So here's some of the traction we've seen in multi-sig. We've seen wallets that are now adopting multi-sig. I just mentioned Copay. We see Coinbase coming out with multi-sig, Circle, Armory, CoinKate, and Green Address. So very exciting to see that companies are now embracing this. And finally, the emergence of multi-sig exchanges, Bitstamp being obviously the largest player in that space, but Terra Exchange, whom I mentioned, and BitQuick is also another BitGo customer. The traction, while still small relative to the overall base, I think is very exciting. In the beginning of 2014, there was basically less than 0.25% of all Bitcoins secured multi-sig, and by the end of the year, we were at about 5.5%. Now we're about 6.5%, continuing to grow. So the traction is growing. So as we look to the future of security, now that I've explained and touched on multisig, I want to call out 5 themes going forward. After multisig, which is really about security, the next most important standard, in my opinion, is HD, which stands for hierarchical deterministic wallets. And this is really all about financial privacy. So as you're transacting in a wallet, if you're reusing your address, either as a send address, where you're sending from, or a change address, then somebody can sniff that. They can see that activity, and they can start to detect your business practices. So the idea of HD is that you can have one wallet that generates as many addresses as you like. There's a key chain structure here. It all rolls up to one wallet, and every time you transact, you use a new address. So to the outside blockchain, it looks like unique transactions each time, but within your wallet provider, they can roll all that up and provide you the right reporting. So this is really important for financial privacy, so you can use Bitcoin technology. We can scale the use of Bitcoin without worrying about people looking into your transactions. I mentioned before some of the spending limits and other corporate treasury policies. I think signing policies in general need to be deployed within wallet providers, within exchanges, and those need to be kind of made aware to the customers. It needs to be pretty clear what's happening. I'm very excited about hardware wallets, hardware devices, trusted computing. This is something that has been embraced by the financial services community for the last 15, 20 years with the smart cards and the fobs and 2FA and other things. And so now we're just starting to see that happen. For two-factor authentication, we use a provider, Authy, which is a really exciting company, and they have a lot of developments coming out. Definitely recommend them. And we're in talks with some of the hardware wallets out there to think about how we can integrate hardware and stronger authentication, stronger key management. I mentioned moving from multi-sig to multi-institutional. I think by the end of this year, it will no longer be acceptable for one company to hold all the keys to a wallet. And I would suggest, all of you, as you're growing your businesses, to take that to heart and challenge the providers you're working with. Think about it if tomorrow some government agency seized every company in the Bitcoin space. The ones where you'd be able to get your Bitcoins back are the ones that have multi-institutional security, or the ones that give you control by giving you the keys. So in a BitGo 203 wallet, you hold 2 of the keys. At vault providers or other companies, they're holding all of your keys. So think about trust and how we can continue to scale Bitcoin without entrusting our coins into another Mt. Gox type of scenario. And then lastly, introduction of industry standards and APIs. I think this is the year that standards are going to emerge. Multisig will move from an idea, a proprietary implementation, to a standard. I think there will be open standards, open APIs. There's a lot of exciting API companies. We have an API that Bitstamp operates on, and if you're interested, please contact me. And I think this is going to then, the industry is going to embrace these standards, and folks in the insurance industries and the audit industries and so forth are going to say, okay, these Bitcoiners, they're taking this seriously. They developed a standard platform and common standards in the industry that now we can start to get behind them, and this will help us scale. If you want to read more about some of the thoughts I mentioned today, there's an article on CoinDesk and an article on Medium about moving to multisig and the future of security. And I'm always happy to take questions now and in the future. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions? I can't actually see with the light. Okay. Well, thank you very much.